Before we start, please subscribe to our channel. Now, get ready as we are about to begin. Story 1. I was a truck driver for over a decade, transporting goods across the country. I had seen my fair share of strange things on the road, but nothing compared to what happened at one fateful night. It all began with a routine delivery to a small town in the middle of nowhere. I had some time to spare before my next pickup, so I decided to take a break at a nearby truck stop. As I was sipping my coffee, a group of locals started talking about a circus that was passing through the town. They said that the circus was known for its creepy clown who had a penchant for scaring people. I chuckled at the thought and shrugged it off, thinking it was just a tall tale. I hit the road once again as the night began to fall, feeling a little more on edge than usual. I kept driving for a while until I noticed a figure standing by the side of the road. As I got closer, I could see that it was a clown, with a white face and a red nose. He had a wicked grin on his face and was waving at me. I tried to shake off the feeling of unease and kept driving, hoping the clown would disappear from my rearview mirror. But he didn't. The clown continued to follow me, popping up at every turn. Each time he appeared, his grin seemed to grow wider and his eyes sparkled with a sinister glee. As I reached the outskirts of the town, the clown disappeared from sight. I thought it was over and took a deep breath, trying to calm my nerves. But suddenly, my truck started to slow down, as if something was pulling it back. I hit the accelerator, but the truck refused to budge. That's when I saw him again, the clown, standing right in front of my truck. My heart started to race as I tried to figure out what was happening. I stepped out of the truck, and the clown started to walk towards me. I could feel his breath on my face, and his laughter was like a knife to my ears. It was then that I saw his eyes. They were black and soulless, like two bottomless pits. I tried to run, but my feet felt like lead. The clown's laughter echoed through the deserted road, and I could feel his presence everywhere. I stumbled and fell, and the clown loomed over me, his laughter growing louder and louder. I could feel his fingers on my neck, and I knew I was doomed. But then, suddenly, everything went dark, and the next thing I knew, I was lying in a hospital bed. The doctors told me that I had been found unconscious on the side of the road, and that I had been in a coma for weeks. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Was it all a dream, or had it been real? It wasn't until I was discharged from the hospital that I found out the truth. The circus had indeed come to town, and the clown was a known prankster who liked to scare people. But on that particular night, he had gone too far. He had dressed up as a clown and had been playing a game of chicken with truck drivers. Unfortunately, I was the unlucky one who had fallen victim to his prank. The incident left me traumatized, and I never drove through that town again. The memory of the clown's laughter and his soulless eyes still haunts me to this day. Every time I see a clown, I can't help but wonder if it's the same one who had almost taken my life. Story 2. My name is Lenny. I've been a truck driver for over a decade now, transporting goods across the country. I've driven through long stretches of empty roads, seen strange things at night, and even experienced some close calls, but nothing had ever prepared me for what happened that night. I was driving through a small town, lost in my thoughts when I saw her, standing on the side of the road. She was a young woman, with long brown hair, and a white dress. She had a far-off look in her eyes, and it felt as though she was looking right through me. I felt a chill run down my spine, but I brushed it off and kept driving. As I reached the outskirts of the town, my truck started to slow down, and the engine made a strange noise. I hit the accelerator, but the truck refused to budge. That's when I saw her again. She was standing in front of my truck, staring at me with that same far-off look. I got out of the truck, feeling a mix of fear and frustration. "What are you doing? You could have gotten hurt." I yelled at her. But she didn't say anything. She just stood there, staring at me. I took a step forward, and she disappeared, as if she had never been there. I shook my head and got back in the truck, trying to shake off the feeling of unease. But as I started driving again, I felt a strange sensation in my body, as if I was no longer in control. My hands were on the steering wheel, but they weren't mine. It was as if someone else was driving my truck. I tried to fight it, but it was too strong. The truck started to swerve, and I felt my body getting thrown around in the cabin. I could hear the sound of my own screams, but they felt distant, as if they were coming from someone else's mouth. I blacked out, and when I came to, I was no longer in my body. I was a passenger, watching as someone else drove my truck. It was a ghost, the same young woman I had seen earlier. She was driving the truck, and I was trapped in her body, unable to move or speak. The ghost was driving the truck towards the edge of a cliff, and I knew I had to do something before it was too late. I fought against the ghost, using all my willpower to try and take back control of my body. It was a struggle, but I managed to overpower the ghost, and I regained control of my body. The truck came to a screeching halt, and I got out, shaking and trembling. I had never felt so scared in my entire life. I knew that I had been possessed by a ghost, and I didn't know if it would ever happen again. I got back in the truck and continued driving, feeling a sense of unease that wouldn't go away. The ghost had left my body, but I could still feel her presence, as if she was watching me from a distance. As I reached my destination, I couldn't help but wonder what would have happened if I hadn't managed to take back control of my body. The thought of being possessed by a ghost was terrifying, and I knew that I would never be the same again. From that day on, I avoided driving through that town, afraid of what might happen if I ever encountered the ghost again. I had a new appreciation for the unknown, and I knew that there were things out there that I couldn't explain or control. But as a truck driver, I had to keep moving forward, even if the road ahead was filled with ghosts and things that go bump in the night. Story 3. I've been driving trucks for as long as I can remember. It's a lonely job, but it pays well, and I enjoy the solitude. I've driven through all sorts of weather and terrain, but nothing could have prepared me for what happened that night. It was a dark and stormy night, and I was driving down a desolate road in the middle of nowhere. I had been driving for hours, and I was getting tired. I reached for my coffee thermos, and as I took a sip, something caught my eye in the sky. It was a bright light, hovering in the distance. At first, I thought it was just a plane or a helicopter, but as I got closer, I realized it was something else entirely. The light was coming from a massive, disc-shaped object, hovering just above the trees. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, and I pulled over to the side of the road, to get a better look. As I got out of my truck, I could hear a strange humming sound, coming from the object. I felt a wave of fear wash over me, and I knew that I needed to get back in my truck and drive away. But it was too late. A beam of light shot out from the object and enveloped me, lifting me off the ground. I felt weightless, as if I was floating in space. The light was blinding, and I couldn't see anything. I felt as if I was being pulled towards the object, and I knew that I was in trouble. The next thing I knew, I was inside the object, and I was being examined by creatures that I had never seen before. They were small, with large heads and black, almond-shaped eyes. They moved quickly, and I could barely keep up with them. I was terrified, and I wanted nothing more than to go back to my truck and drive away. But it was too late. The creatures had me in their grasp, and they were examining me, using strange instruments and devices that I couldn't understand. I felt as if I was in a nightmare, and I wanted nothing more than to wake up. As the examination went on, I realized that the creatures were not hostile, but they were studying me, and they were fascinated by my body and my mind. They were trying to communicate with me, but their language was incomprehensible. The hours passed, and I lost all track of time. I felt as if I was being probed and examined from every angle, and I was starting to feel weak and tired. I knew that I needed to get out of there, but I didn't know how. Eventually, the creatures released me, and I was back in my truck, driving down the same road. I couldn't believe what had happened, and I didn't know if it was real or if it was just a dream. As I drove, I noticed that something was different. I felt as if I had been changed by the experience. I was seeing things differently, and I was starting to question the nature of reality. I knew that I had been abducted by a UFO, and that my life would never be the same again. As I arrived at my destination, I knew that I couldn't tell anyone what had happened. No one would believe me, and I would be seen as crazy. But I knew that I had experienced something real, something beyond my understanding. From that day on, I was a different person. I had seen something that most people could never even imagine, and it had changed me forever. I had a new appreciation for the unknown, and I knew that there were things out there that we couldn't explain or control. Please subscribe and pick another video from our channel to watch next.